Today we're back at locals playing up against some of Nami's worst matchups in OP08, Kalgara and Zoro. And Zoro looks to get underneath you and get fast. It can have some really ridiculous starts, and if you don't have your white snakes with you, then you're just not going to get there. And then Kalgara looks to do something that even the Dofi decks are doing, but almost sometimes just as better than them. Whereas the Dofi decks get to use some of the blue cards that traditionally are good against Nami, Kalgara looks to, not only cheat out characters, but also go tall. When you have a full board that really hits hard, it can be really tough for Nami as well. I'll let you see how the games end up going. They're being played here at my locals at Nerdvana Games in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. If you wanted to play games with me, you can usually catch me there on Saturdays at 1 o'clock. If you wanted any TCG products from Nerdvana Games, you can use code MILLME at their shop. Enjoy the games and enjoy the milling. First round is up against Kalgara, and the hand that we have here we mulligan into, so we have no choice of whether or not we want to keep it or not. But hey, we have some gavels, and we have a snake dance and some redraw. So stuff and things exist. Our opponent gets to play stage on 1, which isn't great, but hey, the opponent gets to play games as well. They get to do some looking, and I'm looking through my hand right now, like a lot of things that cost too much. I would have really liked one of these cards to be a peel off. Our opponent kind of reveals what they look for. So we go to draw, we go to 2 Dawn. Thankfully, we find ourselves a searcher there, which is great. And I'm looking to hopefully pull out a card that I want to maybe discard with one of those gavels. But fortunately, I just end up sending a bunch of Kayas to the bottom, which is not great. Now, when it comes back to their turn, I'm thinking about, okay, so I have to gavel something away if they do go for an attack. And that's what they end up doing with the kind of AK swing here, or they kind of play that out as a 3 cost. So what I'm going to do now is gavel pitch, kind of mill 2 cards, drop a Margaret, which honestly isn't that great. Margaret is definitely a card, especially against yellow generally, like you do want. I find myself an Impel Down, which is going to be a great target for my other gavel. And then I'm going to be able to start to redraw, and then I can maybe snake dance to get more continued value. It's not the type of thing I want right now. Like, this is definitely one of those matchups where I want peel-offs early. I want to be drawing as many cards as possible, because once they start flooding their board full of a bunch of like 6, 7 higher power attacks, then it's going to become like really problematic. And as you can see, they're playing around the white snake here, making me kind of have it. So I'm going to snake dance the kind of Gloriosa back up to my hand, just kind of get that value now. They're going to swing in for 9K there. And, they have that 7K power attack out immediately. And notably, that is a card that can get rid of any stage. That's one thing that's really like underrated about this deck. Like, that 5 cost can get rid of any stage. It gets rid of theirs, and like they get to kind of search and everything. Definitely an aspect about Kalgara that does not get sung enough in terms of praises. So here I'm going to go gavel pitch and play out, kind of the Gloriosa as an extra counter. One of the reasons why I decided to kind of do that snake dance early, because I saw the rest of the Dawn that they had, and definitely wanted to make sure that I had a stop for that. So I go to 6 Dawn here, draw a card, and I draw myself into a peel off. So, I'm thinking about whether or not I rip this off immediately. First, I go in for the 5K attack. They counter out, just force a card out from there. And I think, at this point I want to pass, because then I'm not able to effectively use both of my counters. Like, I'm going to have to counter out of 3 attacks somehow this turn, and I'm not going to be able to do that if I peel off. So I don't want to be taking out free hits too early, but my opponent is getting out and aggressive against me. So again, just have to contend with certain things like this. Kalgara definitely, again, as I mentioned, one of our tougher matchups. Now, we saw a lot of our bad cards like early. Again, putting our Kayas to the bottom is just not great. We're not able to kind of move through our deck. We're only at 3 cards left, 6 Dawn up, and opponent's thinking about how they want to swing this. So they're playing around the white snake, which is smart. A lot of folks at my locals do, and I think it's because a lot of the friends they have are either like Nami mains, or they play against Nami so much. So they swing 6. I go kind of mellow and redraw there. Now I have myself a white snake. So I'm like, okay, if they use up their Dawn in certain ways, I might be able to get around that, but unfortunately, probably not. Probably going to end up taking a hit here. So we're going to mellow, we're going to redraw. So we have 2 white snakes, which is going to be great next turn. So we're going to have to end up taking this hit here. Trigger, Impel Down, draw 2 cards. And that is great. As a starting trigger, honestly, feels pretty good. So now, they're going to play out the attack from there. And at this point, I definitely just want to snake dance and counter out of that. There's no point in taking these free hits that they have. I draw a card. I'm going to go to kind of more Dawn here. At this point, we're going to go 5 to 5. And we drew ourselves a Margaret, which honestly isn't that bad in terms of just like getting a free attack out. This isn't a deck that necessarily is going to be able to reliably get rid of this. So we're going to be able to get a free redraw. 3 White Snakes is pretty good. Unfortunately, we are at 5 Dawn though. If we were able to just triple White Snake for free, that would have been a huge turn for us because it draws us 3 cards, probably going to be able to counter out of everything. Like when you're able to get off like multiple White Snakes, that's a good feeling, not just one, especially against an opponent that's playing around it so well. So the board is almost full on their side here. They're going to go to their 9 Dawn turn. We're going to go to our 10 here. They have a lot of access to things that they can push multiple ways, and you can start to see how this matchup can get really tough because they go wide and they swing tall. Whereas if you were playing against maybe something like Katakuri, they just go tall and they'll like stall you out, so you can spend a lot of turns doing proactive things. But in many ways, this deck just does, like, it's a mix of Dofi and Katakuri, which is the kind of tough aspect of this. So they find themselves another 8k power attacker here, and I'm starting to see the kind of things meshing in there. So they go in for a 6k attack. I double White Snake into this dry card and kind of keep those White Snakes over there. So now they have to think about how they swing. To be fair, they don't have to think that much considering the amount of 7k attackers they have, which is a bit of the problematic thing. So there you go. They're able to tap down my blocker there. And it's gonna have its purpose met. So it's kind of like the blocker already, it's like they have to swing with that to get rid of the blocker so that I don't use the blocker on one of their bigger attacks, but it's fine. It's served its purpose. Unfortunately, today I am playing with the snake dances. I wanted to really, not the snake dances, sorry, the perfume femur. I really wanted to test if the trigger was more valuable in a metagame where you are getting hit more, especially in a locals where like people play around Nami a lot. I just felt like the 2K wasn't as valuable because again, it felt like, and again, it doesn't look like they want to use up more resources to attack in, which is kind of interesting. But it just felt like in a metagame where, you're not countering out as much, or you don't have those resources to necessarily counter out. We just drew ourselves into a Mellow and a Gavel, which is great. We go 5 to 5. I feel like the trigger in general is more valuable to you. I don't want the 2K. I don't want to be able to stretch through more cards just to be able to force out a counter and have less cards in hand. I would rather just have more triggers in life that draw me through my deck. And so that's why I'm testing out the perfume femur. That's my kind of logic for it. Definitely something I've been thinking about. Whether or not it's better than the 2K is kind of like up to testing. I feel like maybe the 2K might just be net better, but again, it's probably just better off locals here, especially if it's a locals that's using their 5K swings and turning them into 6. The 2K counter is definitely more valuable there. So start off with the White Snake redraw. Then we'll go Hanger to counter out of the 6k attack, noting they are on their 10 Dawn turn. They have 9 Dawn left. They will swing 6 here. I will pay 1. I will rubber band to mill 1 here. Still have 4 life, but we haven't moved too far through our deck. We mill over a Pilaf, which is not great at all. Definitely the type of card that we're looking to, especially for spending this many resources per turn. But at least we have a Gavel pitch into a Mellow, and hopefully we can continue to draw from there. So they're trying to see how much Dawn they should spend right now and kind of move through our own turn. So they're going to get rid of the 5k body there and play out another kind of rush ace there. And we are, and so that was me tapping my hand. I'm like, are you sure you have less than 2 life? Can we, I would happily give you more life, but no, that thing is coming at me with rush. So now they have 3 Dawn left. They have to think about how they want to spread this out. Automatically, I'm at 6k there. And I have to start thinking about like how I want to use this. So Gavel pitch, I'm going to mill 2 cards because I think I want to enable the draw as early as possible on this Mellow. So we're going to spend 2 Dawn. We're going to redraw here. And we are going to draw into a Snake Dance. So unfortunately, we're going to be taking some hits here. So I have to take 2 hits here by the looks of it. So top card here, no trigger, Apis to hand, and we are not going to be able to counter out of that, out of these swings here. So this is going to go in 8 my way. I'm at 6, so I'm not going to be able to counter out of that unless I use both of these cards. And that's kind of what I'm thinking about. Do I want to take 3 hits this turn? Do I want to take 2? And so I decided to take 2. So I get rid of my Kaya. They swing in that much here. And that's where, there you go. Perfume trigger allows me to redraw a card, which is fantastic. And then we're going to go back to our turn up at 10 Dawn. And then we have double Pilaf. Now, double Pilaf, not great. I said I wanted to see Pilafs, and the monkey's paw curled a little bit, and I saw too many. Double Margaret is even worse, actually. Even worse. And at this point, you should have seen my face. I was dying laughing because I'm like, I lost. I actually just lost the game. I went Pilaf into double Margaret. how are you supposed to win this game? Like, I have to play both out. I'm at 2 life. I have to play both out and maybe just hope to find a gavel or something. And I'm trying to think about like how much value that's actually worth. Like, play the Margaret. I can block out of 2 things. What if they tap one, tap both down and are able to kill them? That's not a great situation either. So I'm like, okay, at least I have a snake dance. And then I have like a rubber band and a desert spotter. So I kind of have like 2 4K counters and a blocker, and I have 2 life. Okay, so in a perfect world where they don't tap down the blocker, I should generally be able to counter out everything. But now they're able to kind of tap that down, and like maybe one of my triggers is going to be able to maybe bounce one of their attackers or whatever. So that's a little unfortunate. That's not great. That's okay. We'll take the trigger. So we spot a, draw 2, and then we discard a card. We're definitely going to be discarding this Margaret. That's absolutely doo-doo caca, right? And then so the spotted trigger resolves there. And at this point, I don't want to take too much life, because at that point, you know, if I was to take that last life, then they are just going to be attaching a bunch of Dawn and swinging into me. So I'm thinking like, is it worth it based on, you know, they have 5 Dawn left. They could just attach a bunch of Dawn into the 8K and swing in there. How do I counter out of this 9K attack that they're swinging at me with? And I'm like, all right, look, you know what? You just got to do it. You just got to do it. And so they're swinging it so much. It's so hard here. So at this point, I'm going to have to go Spada, rearrange, look at the top. I'm so close to kind of winning this game as well. If I had 1 more turn, I definitely would have won this game. I definitely think I could have gone there, but as you're kind of understanding from my language, it's not looking that great. So I'm putting my kind of 3 cards there, and I'm trying to understand like, all right, what am I drawing into? What can I mill? What can I go into? Like, I have another free 4K counter in like the double pitch for the Apis and the Kaya. So is that enough, right? Do I want to draw into the White Snake or into the Gavel? Like, how do I want to play this? Because I have 3 Dawn left, and I'm thinking about the math here, and it's looking pretty bleak. I'm not going to lie, folks. It's looking pretty bleak, right? Look at the amount of attackers that they have left. Look at what it is. And this is just kind of that Kalgara matchup. This is how hard things can get against a matchup that goes tall and has the Dofi ability of cheating things out. Let me know how you think I maybe could have played this matchup better. Like, did I just end up drawing bad into the last section where I went again, peel off into double Margaret? Like, were the RNG gods just not in my favor? And that's where it ended up. Because if I was drawing into events like these, I would have been perfectly fine. I would have been perfectly great. So I'm going to kind of put those to the bottom and try and draw into more characters. So I opt to kind of counter out of that 11K. They attach, swing 9K here with that, leave up a Dawn. I'm going to go redraw. No character there, and then I will have to kind of rubber band to mill over a card, and then they will just swing 8K or 9K, and then I just lose the game. So GG's there. That's Kalgara. Let's hop right into the Zoro matchup. Now, many of you know that Zoro is definitely, the red matchups are definitely a little tough for Nami. I think that might be a bit of an understatement. They go first. They unfortunately won that role there. They definitely will choose to go first in that sense. And even still, like, even if we won the die roll, we probably just go second anyway. We want more resources. They Nami, they find themselves a card here. We go to 2 Dawn. And we're going to just start, kind of thinking about how we want to play things out. The Margaret actually is going to be relatively valuable, but I'm thinking in my head, like, a very common opener is honestly swing 5K with Zoro into 3-cost rush Zoro. So I'm going to hold myself up because a White Snake counters out of both of that. And it also counters out a 3 Dawn being attached to the Nami and swinging in that way. So opponent does that in a certain way where they're like, okay, so now I'm like, okay, I didn't think about like the Dawn being attached. So at first I go White Snake redraw, and that kind of counters out there. They'll go 6K there, and then I will kind of counter out with the Apis because I don't need to take attacks this early in the game. I'll put the White Snake away, and then I will have to kind of draw a card from here. And at that point, I will probably look to attack first and then play Margaret, because getting their board clear, getting a quote unquote free counter with the Margaret out is going to be very important as well. And then eventually, if I want to kind of draw through into other effects, I want to make sure that I also have the Kaya available to me later to get rid of maybe some of the dead draws that I have. And so I'm thinking right now, I was thinking like, yo, do I have enough cards? Did I draw enough cards? And I believe I actually do end up like, I do have enough cards. I do have enough cards here. That's kind of what I was confusing, because I was thinking about too much, and I was like, yeah. I have enough cards. Look, again, I'm showing y'all that, look, I'm not trying to cheat. I'm like, I'm confusing myself here. So regardless, we play out the Margaret. We draw ourselves a card. And again, these are more dead cards that I'm happy to like kind of throw away with the Kaya, but they're also like gavel fodder if we need it to be. So that's also kind of great. So let's rearrange it to the front of our hand. Opponent untaps to 5 Dawn. It's really a question as to how they kind of play this out. Again, against the locals that really likes to play against Nami, kind of swinging in 6 is so important. Noting the 5 cost Luffy here, I do make a bit of a doo-doo here. So I will have to kind of think about that. But that's kind of later on. That's kind of later on. You'll see. So anyway, they swing 5. I will Desert Spot. I will rearrange. And I'll look at like, hey, honestly, Margaret can grab what I needed to there. So I take the hit here, which is again a bit of the doo-doo move, because I'm like, wait, that thing doesn't have like a thing from blocker. So I was like, we'll take the L there. We took a hit like for no reason there, which is perfectly fine. I think ultimately speaking, like it's okay. You need some triggers at the end of the day. You're going to take those hits anyway. It's perfectly fine. We have more resources. We have more counters to later. And those Margarets definitely are going to come into play later on. They're just going to have to attach more Dawn to kind of make stuff like that work. So we opt to draw first into the Snake Dance and maybe find other options. We find ourselves another Snake Dance, which is great. We're going to bottom deck 2 Pilafs, which we want later in the game. That's fantastic as well. And then we leave ourselves up with some Dawn and we pass the turn. Now, I definitely could have thrown the Margaret out in front there. I definitely don't want to play out the other Margaret, knowing that they probably have another ace and they're going to be able to, a Luffy, and they're going to be able to get past my Margarets from there. But that doesn't actually happen as often as we believe, because the Zoro player actually ends up drawing pretty slow. If you take a look at how their board is right now, they're not drawing into the cards that they need. So actually, it's not a bad spot. All things considered, like taking that hit for free. I mean, take a look at this. They spent another 5 Dawn. They play another Rush Luffy here, right? And they choose like, okay, I don't, it ends up, the Margaret ends up playing its purpose here, right? So they leave back a Dawn. They buff everything up. They swing 6. And so I go gavel pitch Margaret because that card's not going to be great, like moving forward. I unfortunately get rid of 2 Mellows, which is not a beautiful thing. So now at this point, the Luffy comes down. So Margaret has had its purpose. So there you go, folks. Come on. It's like it didn't even happen at all. Right there you go. I was able to counter out of this turn. And the last thing I want to do here is draw. Noting that they have 1 Dawn up, I will not be looking to attack. They have that one event that counters, it doesn't counter out, but it allows them to like cheat out a character for free. That's not something that I want to look to do at all. So unfortunately, especially with milling over 2 Mellows, I'm finding a lot more Snake Dances and not Mellows. I don't want Snake Dances. I want Mellows. I want to be able to draw through my deck, not replay my characters. That's not the plan I want to go at. But regardless, I took the hit and it ultimately ended up like kind of playing out the same based on how bad my opponent's drawing. Like they're having to like play out cards to build out their board, which is great. I want this deck to be using their Dawn kind of per Dawn and not like cheating cards out. And that gives me the buffer I need. But unfortunately, now they're starting to build out. Look at what they just did. Look at the 3 cost and the 3 cost. Not looking good. It's not looking good, folks. But it's okay. They have a bunch of Dawn left. They play, naturally the Zoro is able to play around the White Snakes just by adding a Dawn, buffing everything up by 1k anyway. So it's like a lot tougher in that aspect as well. So first we'll start off with the White Snake to tax everything. We'll draw, and I was really hoping to find another. So we'll get rid of the hanger, count out of the 6k attack. Thinking about how they want to attack further from here. They will just attack raw 6. We will pay 2. We will kind of Snake Dance, bring the Gloriosa back. And we definitely just want to make sure that we're continuing to find Snake Dances and Mellows. Even if I want Mellows more, we will double Snake Dance, get our characters back. And it's just a good feeling overall. They'll pay some amount of Dawn here and then play out the Kid and Killer. The Kid and Killer, that's such an annoying card. Really is. Like I do not miss that card from the RP Law days, but at this point I'm gonna go gavel pitch a card here, and it's gonna have to be gavel pitch the Gloriosa. We're gonna mill 2 here. Again, very valuable cards there that we're losing. Fortunately, we're just not able to find the cards that we really need. And then we have 2 cards left. We draw a card. We spend 3 Dawn. Draw 2 cards, and at this point we're going to Kaya, and then at this point I'm like, oh wait, why do I have like such less Dawn? I should be at more Dawn here, right? Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, bring those back out. I was like, I shouldn't be at that much Dawn. Yeah. So anyway, Kaya, we draw 2 dead cards. We're able to kind of replace them immediately, which is why, like, generally speaking, like if you had the option to kind of Snake Dance, You generally don't want to snake dance back a Kaya unless you have a Pilaf. And so obviously I didn't know I had the Pilaf there, but just like keep in mind, like I had 2 snake dances. So obviously I'm returning back both my characters, but it's just not generally something you want to do. You'd rather bounce back the Gloriosa that guarantees you like a hit. It replaces itself, with Kaya doesn't really replace itself. You don't really want that card disadvantage in a world of Kuja Pirates. You want to maintain that proactive ability to play through your cards and keep a consistent amount of cards in your hand. Kaya is more so a desperate measure. Kaya is a way to get through your cards. It's not a way to like, it's not a thing you want to be doing if it's like one of your options. You want to try other things. So anyway, we mill over a Pilaf, which isn't great. Very love it or hate it with this deck, you know, so we're able to kind of counter out of that attack. So noting that these attacks are like 6k attacks, especially with you know, the boost from the Zoro. So that is a 5k attack. We're able to kind of redraw from there. We will take the hit from there and kind of 2 cards, pitch 1. It's gonna be definitely pitch the gavel here. I really hope I pitch the gavel here. It's really gonna be pitch gavel in terms of this desert spotted trigger. But I think honestly at the end of the day, the Kaya is disadvantaged. So, you know, what I draw off of the mellow can be discarded with the gavel. So I think it's better we pitch the Kaya here. And so at this point, I'm going to mellow, redraw, and find myself a Apis from there. And then opponent starts to attach more Dawn. I mean, I'm at 3 life. I have to be really careful about how I take life with this Kitten Killer out, because that's just going to gain like free power boosts based on how things work from there. So they know to attack with that last. They're going to attack 7k against me here. And especially with like the 6k boost, I'm just going to have to use up more. So I'm going to go Apis, Gavel, Pitch. And so obviously at this point, I probably could have just gone, actually, so that was a 8k attack. So I wouldn't have been able to go Apis, Pitch. So I'm going to take this hit. Kitten Killer is going to hit me for free. I get a Kaya, no trigger. Yeah, the Kitten Killer just gonna get that free attack off on me, that free boost. No trigger on the White Snake here. Definitely a trigger I could have used. I just thought it would be more valuable to maybe like draw some cards. But at this point in the game where like the deck is getting so aggro against me, I think this is definitely a situation where I've like looking back at it, the White Snake trigger would have been more valuable to me, just being able to rearrange, especially knowing that I have a Kaya. It definitely just would have been more valuable to me. So at this point, very little cards left in deck. I'm just going to Kaya. I'm just going to throw Kayas out. Yeah, like these are cards I definitely do not want to be drawing. I'd rather be drawing like high value options here. And now I'm drawing like blank. I really am just drawing blank. So I'm going to get rid of those 2 cards and just kind of pass on from there. I don't have many options. I would have loved to draw into more proactive options like our Pilafs and everything. And so we're just gonna kind of pass from there. Nothing for us to do. No need to attack. They have 1 Dawn up. I don't need them to cheat out more things. Just kind of pass them from here. It's not looking that great. So we did make a couple of sloppy plays here, kind of a couple of sloppy mistakes. But ultimately speaking, I mean, this is a deck that really is just going to be able to come over top of us, naturally play around the White Snakes, and just going to be tough matchups. And with a lot of the discourse online of like, you know, kind of Nami being a brain dead deck, there's a lot of the decks that get preyed on by maybe the black decks in the metagame that also still prey on the Nami deck. So if you did have that problem against Nami, you don't need to play blue, you don't need to play Pudding, you don't need to play Gion. You could just play decks like this. And ultimately speaking, the black decks and the other decks do have to be ready for strategies like this to be around at locals and kind of terrorize in that sense. But at this point, no life. Opponent is just attaching a bunch of Dawn and looking at how they can kind of counter out in general from this. So I believe that's like 4 or 5 Dawn being attached into this. This is like a 12k swing with Zoro having 1 Dawn on it. So first we're going to White Snake. We're going to draw. Oh Lord, we found a Pilaf. That is not what we want at all. So we're gonna mellow retry and we find the double Pilaf. Again, both of these games where I played the Pilaf accidentally. We mill over a card. Both of these games are situations, GG's, where I find 2 Pilafs and again, just not able to counter out of what I need to from my opponent. Again, sloppy plays, but overall, both of these games are situations where the bad side of RNG just got me to draw into the wrong cards at the wrong time. So, hey, there was ways to come back into this. Unfortunately, we weren't able to find it. So I hope you enjoyed the commentary here. And I hope even if you see some of the worst matchups, you're still kind of motivated to get some wins on my behalf, because I'm more than happy to show some of the silly things that I do here at Locals.